The wind cut sharp through the small town streets that Christmas Eve, carrying with it the jingling of bells from store doors and the cheerful sound of carols spilling out of speakers above shop windows. Families hurried past, bundled in coats and scarves, arms filled with brightly wrapped packages. For most of them, tonight would be about warmth, feasts, and laughter around glowing trees. But for James Carter, Christmas Eve felt like another reminder of how hard life had become. James was 34, a single dad trying to hold everything together. He worked nights at the laundromat just to keep the rent paid on the modest two-bedroom above it. His son, Ethan, was 7, bright-eyed, endlessly curious, and too young to fully understand why their Christmas looked different than everyone else's. Inside their apartment sat a second-hand Christmas tree James had bought from a thrift shop 2 years ago. Its fake branches leaned awkwardly on one side, and this year there were no presents beneath it. Not one. James had promised himself he'd find a way, but hours had turned into days and days into weeks, and money always disappeared into bills before he could set aside anything extra. Still, he kept smiling for Ethan. He told himself love was enough, that presents mattered more than presents. But as they walked home from the grocery store that night carrying a single bag of food, bread, soup, and a carton of cocoa mix, James's heart felt heavier than the winter sky. They turned the corner near Miller's Diner when James noticed movement in the alley. At first he thought it was a raccoon scurrying through the trash, but then, under the glow of a flickering streetlight, he saw her. A girl. Thin, her frame swallowed by an oversized coat that looked 2 decades old. She had on no gloves, only sleeves pulled over her hands, and she was hunched over the dumpster, pulling out scraps of food. Carefully, as if she had done this before. James stopped cold. Ethan, noticing too, tugged his sleeve. "Dad, what's she doing?" Ethan whispered. James swallowed hard. She's hungry." The girl turned at the sound of voices, and her eyes widened with fear. She clutched a torn plastic bag to her chest like a shield. "I wasn't stealing," she stammered quickly. "Please, don't call the police, I'll leave." James raised his hands gently. "Hey, no one's calling anyone. You don't have to run." She took a step back, her boots worn so thin they barely held together. "I'm fine." But James could see she wasn't. She was trembling, not just from the cold. There was a hollowness in her cheeks, a desperation in her eyes that no child should ever carry. Ethan's small voice broke the silence. "Are you cold? Do you want some of our soup?" The girl's lips parted, but she said nothing. She looked at James again, unsure whether to trust him. James crouched down, slightly, softening his voice. "Look, it's Christmas Eve. Nobody should spend tonight out here digging through trash. Let me buy you a warm meal. Just one meal. That's all. No strings attached." For a moment, the girl just stared at him. Then slowly, almost reluctantly, she nodded. Inside Miller's Diner, the warmth was a shock compared to the freezing street. The waitress Bonnie raised her eyebrows at James as he slid into a booth with the girl and Ethan. But she didn't ask questions. Within minutes, steaming plates of food arrived. Chicken pot pie, mashed potatoes, hot rolls with butter. The girl ate quickly at first, then slowed as though savoring every bite. Ethan chatted beside her, telling her about the Christmas movie marathon he wanted to watch, about how he hoped Santa would still find their little apartment. Finally she spoke. Her voice was soft, hoarse from disuse. "My name's Lily," James smiled gently. "Hi Lily, I'm James, and this troublemaker here is Ethan." Ethan grinned proudly. "I'm 7.5. Lily gave the tiniest smile back. For the first time James noticed her eyes. They were a deep brown, guarded but not hardened. As they ate, Lily opened up bit by bit. She had been in and out of shelter since her mother passed away last year. Her father. She trailed off, staring at her plate, but James didn't press. From the bruised silence he understood enough. She had been drifting, alone, trying to survive however she could. James listened, his throat tight. Every word she spoke pulled him back to nights when Ethan was just a baby, when his own wife had walked out. He remembered the crushing weight of not knowing if he could make it, the terror of being alone. But he had never been truly alone. He always had Ethan. This girl had no one. When the meal was over, James paid the bill with money he had set aside for gas, his stomach twisting at the math he'd have to do later. but something told him it was the best purchase he'd ever made. Outside, snow had begun to fall, dusting the streets in a soft white glow. Ethan reached for Lily's hand without hesitation. "Do you want to come to our house? Dad makes the best hot chocolate." James hesitated. He knew it wasn't simple. Taking her in meant questions, responsibilities, risks. But then Lily looked at him, not pleading, just waiting. Waiting to see if he would care, or if he would turn away like so many others had. And in that moment, the choice was clear. That night, Lily sat with them in their little apartment. They had no presents, no feast, just a small pot of soup and 3 mugs of cocoa. But the laughter that filled the room was something money could never buy. For the first time in years, the apartment didn't feel small or empty. It felt alive. The next morning, James contacted a local outreach program he had once ignored out of pride. Together, they found Lily a safe place to stay, and James promised he would visit, that she would never be invisible again. Over the weeks that followed, neighbors heard about what James had done. Bags of food appeared at his door. Someone donated toys for Ethan. Bonnie from the diner brought over cookies. The little apartment above the laundromat became a place of kindness, not just survival. Lily began visiting often. She and Ethan became inseparable, like siblings who had always known each other. James felt something stir in his heart too, an unfamiliar but welcome sense of purpose, of family expanding in the most unexpected way. One evening, as he watched the 2 kids string paper snowflakes around their crooked tree, James realized the truth. He had thought he was saving Lily that night in the alley, but the truth that stunned him, the truth that filled his eyes with tears, was that she had saved him too. She reminded him of the man he wanted to be, the father Ethan deserved, the neighbor the world needed more of. Christmas wasn't about what they lacked. It was about what they gave, what they shared, what they built together. And that night, with snow falling softly outside, James whispered a silent prayer of thanks, not for gifts or luck, but for a single moment of kindness that changed everything. Because sometimes miracles don't come wrapped in paper and bows. Sometimes they're found in an alley on a cold Christmas Eve, when a hungry child looks up and someone decides not to look away.